Mother's Day is quickly approaching, and today we are going to walk through 5 unique, fun, and simple gifts that you can create for that mother or grandmother in your life for this Mother's Day season. Hey, I'm Sarah. If you're new here, welcome. It's good to have you here. Make sure you hit that subscribe and notification bell so that you don't miss any of the upcoming tutorials, and make sure you stick around to the end so you don't miss out on any of these 5 fun projects or any of the tips and tricks along the way. Now let's get started first with this frame that I picked up at the Dollar Tree. I really liked this one because it had a white finish around the frame and these beads for the hanger part. I thought that was pretty cute, and the only thing obviously I don't like is the happily ever after in the middle. So we are going to pop this out of the frame and we are going to cover up the back part and paint it. So after you pop those little closure things on there open, we are going to take the Waverly chalk paint, and this is in the Nimbus shade. It's kind of like a gray, and I am going to do, I think, about 3 thin layers of this paint just to cover up this back. I thought this would be easier than covering up the pink on the front. Now when I put this all together at the end, I don't do it here, but you could absolutely cut out some cardstock to cover up that pink writing on the back if you don't want that showing. But for this, I just went ahead and did the front part here and did a few thin layers of this chalk paint. Now after my layers dried, I went ahead and in my Cricut design space, I just created this quick little blessed grandma with the fonts, and then I grabbed as many hearts as I needed for all the grandkids that she has. And I am going to just put this vinyl on the painted part here. Now I want to show you, I had to cut this out twice because the first time I forgot to weld or unite my lettering. And as you can see, that left all these extra little pieces because it cuts out each letter individually. So if you ever have an issue where this happens, it is because you did not weld or unite your letters. So you can see it has all those little separate pieces, but after I went back and welded it, now it is one seamless cut, and that is absolutely the way we want this. It just looks a lot nicer. So we do not need that first one. And we are going to take this and line these up, and I'm going to grab just a piece of tape to put on the back here so that I can keep these hearts where I need them when I pull out my transfer tape. Using the painter's tape on the back here makes it super easy to readjust where these hearts go. Some tapes can be a little trickier to get that to unstick, but this painter's tape is pretty low tack. So I just keep playing around with this until I feel that it is lined up the best that I can get it. Now taking this low tack paper transfer tape, I use this whenever I'm working on a painted or stained surface. Because it is low tack, it will not peel up any paint. This is a great option for if you're making like those outdoor round door signs or those longer ones that people put like welcome on. And sometimes they use transfer tape when putting on vinyl and it pulls up the paint. This is the way to prevent that. I will have everything that I'm using today linked down below, so if you need to find yourself some of this paper transfer tape, it makes my life a whole lot easier knowing that it is not going to rip up the painted surface that I just worked on. So using my scraper tool, I am just burnishing down the front and the back of this, and then peeling this backing off so that I can put this on the painted board. Now, because it is a low tack transfer tape, sometimes the vinyl doesn't even like to stick to it very well, so just push it back down if it starts to pop up and slowly work your way across, pulling that backing off. Now, there are several ways you could go about attaching this to that board. I decided to try it this way, where I put the board back in and closed it up, and then tried to put it down centered the best that I could. And you'll see here in a minute that I would probably use my parchment paper trick to get this lined up better first before just going for it and putting this down, because it does end up being a little bit crooked, which I'm fine with, but I would probably use parchment paper underneath this to get it lined up first and then pull that out and place it down. If you don't know what I'm talking about with that, I will link a video down below that walks through layering vinyl and different tricks you can use, and that is one of them. But I pull this out now, and then I am going to burnish this down better and carefully remove that transfer tape. There are so many different things that you could do on these little frames. I really do like the wooden handles with those beads. You could absolutely pull those off and paint them and paint the frame and really customize this to whoever you are giving it to. I left that all alone because I know that that will look best in my mom's kitchen, where this will probably end up. Now, carefully working, pulling this off, I like to go at an angle. That just seems to help keep the vinyl down better when pulling up transfer tape of any kind, really. I always do it at an angle. And rubbing these down, as you can see, it is a little bit crooked. I don't think she'll mind, but whatever. Maybe I would redo it, but I'm not going to. And here, as you can see on the back, you could add cardstock to just cover up those letters. But that is one super easy, quick project that takes minutes to do, and you can customize it however you want. And this would be a perfect little gift for mom or grandma. Moving on to the second one, we are gonna head to the sublimation printer for this one. Now, these pouches I got off of Amazon. They came like 10 in a pack, and it's kind of like this off-white creamy color with the black trim, and these are really nice sized pouches. This would be a great makeup bag or a pencil bag. I could see my mom using this for in her church bag for when my kids are sitting with her and need some pencil colors or something. She could have that filled with all sorts of fun things for them to color with. And I just grabbed off of Creative Fabrica the birth month flowers. If you didn't know that was a thing, it is definitely a thing, and Creative Fabrica has so many different files that you can use. Last year, this ladybug, there's little beetles all over in my room. Anyways, last year I did a giant flower pot with vinyl cutouts of all the grandkids and their birth flowers. That was a lot of weeding, so I decided to do the sublimation route this time. And Creative Fabrica has a ton of files that you can use either in black and white or in color. And then I took this over to Canva, where I like to do most of my designing, and set this up so that each child was in order of their year with their specific flower. Then, using my X-Acto knife, you could use a scissors or whatever, I am just trimming around this the best that I can so that I can see the placement of this a little bit better when getting ready to press this. Now, if you're thinking, Sarah, I don't do sublimation, I hear you. I didn't do that for a very long time. In fact, I really love using infusible inks, and you could definitely do a lot on these bags or any of the projects today that I use sublimation for. I will link down below the infusible ink products that I use all the time, that are my favorite. Cricut is not my favorite for infusible inks, I will admit. I did find a better brand off of Amazon that is my go-to, and you can really do a lot with that and customize things that way as well. And I will link a couple videos down below also that walk through infusible inks if you are not familiar with that. But now we are going to head over to the heat press, and I am going to get this set up that I have my paper, my pouch, and my heat safe tape. And I am going to start out by taking some butcher paper and just folding this up and sticking it inside so that the ink from the paper doesn't transfer all the way through the bag. Sometimes the materials you're working with can be a little bit thin and it can go through. I haven't had that too many times, but I have had it where it's kind of leaked through during the press. Now I have this set up to 340, which is what was recommended by the company that made the bag. So that is what we are going to work with. And I kind of played around a while with this one because I didn't want that zipper to get in the way. But then at the same time, that black part on the bottom was a little bit thicker than the white part. And when you're doing sublimation, you really need a good even press. You don't want a lot of the bulkiness around it. So what I did to fix that was I grabbed my smallest Cricut heat press mat that I have and played around with the placement here to see what would work maybe to keep that black part out of the way when I press this. But first, before I press the sublimation on here, I'm going to pre-press this whole pouch on both sides. Now, when I did this, I wasn't even thinking about the zipper. And as you can see, it's really steaming when I open this. And I think it's the zipper that got really hot, but it didn't melt it or anything. So I felt that that was okay if I had that part on the mat when I pressed this, because that was more flush with that white part than the black. So I'm all about testing things out and just seeing what works best. If I mess up, well, there were 10 pouches in that pack that I bought, so I could always try it again. Here we are just going to take my first print, and this I could lift up and kind of use the light coming in from the window in front of me that I could see through the paper enough, holding it a certain way so I could line it up and try to get it as straight as possible. Because of all the names on it, I really didn't want it crooked. And I know, I'm really funny about things being crooked. I was kind of upset about that first one not being super straight, but I got this as straight as I could, and then I'm just tacking it down with a little bit of heat safe tape. Then I am going to grab my Teflon sheet, and we are going to press this per the directions that came with the pouch at 340 for 55 seconds. Now it said between 40 and 60 seconds, so I went with 55 just because I felt like the more the better, right? I don't want to press this twice because with sublimation, it really is a one-time press, and it ended up being just the right amount of time. So we're going to swing this away and carefully pull off this, as it is super hot. I mean, can you see that steam coming? I think that zipper is just burning. It is super hot, but it didn't affect it in any way. It is all still perfectly fine. But as you can see, these colors from that print turned out really, really nice on this like canvas type material, and I really like how this turned out. If you have a grandma in your life who has one grandkid or 25, those birth flower things are really fun to work with, and you can do a lot with these. I highly recommend going over to Create a Fabrica and checking them out. I will link this specific file down below so you can find the one that I'm using, but there are seriously just a ton of options. So we are going to breeze through the second side here, doing the exact same process that I did with the first one, taping this down and then pressing it at 340 for 55 seconds. If you guys are getting any value out of this video today, if you like seeing videos and tutorials on simple projects, go down and hit that like button, comment below what projects are your favorite, what are your favorite materials to work with. I always like hearing what everybody else loves working with, and I try to do tutorials based around what you all like, because I just like helping out and trying out new things. If there are things you want me to test out, drop that down below and I would be happy to do that for you. Now the second side is finished, and again, I really like how this turned out. These colors, and it's a watercolored texture print. I really like this, and I like how this pouch turned out. It's a really nice big pouch, and I think my mom is really going to like this. What do you think? What would you put on these pouches? Now for our next project, I picked up a bunch of these keychain coin pouches from Hobby Lobby. They have so many different colors, and the hardware is really sturdy. This is just a quality product here, and it's only $3.99. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. With this one, I decided to use some vinyl, and this is the Caesar Strip Flock Pro vinyl, which is what I like to use underneath puff vinyl, which is what I attempt to use on this little coin pouch today. Now, as you can see, I have cut out Blessed Mama, and then this is the flock vinyl is the offset, and then I have a matte black puff vinyl that I'm going to be putting on the top of that. Now I will say ahead of time, here's a spoiler alert, the puff did not puff very well. I've done a lot of testing with puff vinyl, and it is a trickier material to work with until you figure it out. And a lot of times it's the brand is different or whatever, and I can talk about that later in a different tutorial, but I would do this different and I might test it out on a few other pouches later. But with the flock vinyl, you want to heat at 310 for 10 seconds. After you use a lint roller to clean off your surface, just make sure there aren't any fuzzies or cat hair or whatever might be flying around your craft room. And then we are going to insert a piece of parchment paper in between that back pocket and that plastic. I didn't know if that would melt or stick to the backing of it, so I put parchment paper in there, which seemed to help. It didn't affect it at all with the heat. But we are going to put this on the edge here, and I was really trying to avoid all this hardware because it was pretty big and chunky, which makes it so nice and quality, but I didn't want to get that underneath the heat press. So I kind of held it on the edge here, and I came up with a better way of doing it later, but this was the best I could do. Now with the flock vinyl, we are just tacking it down for 10 seconds just enough so that I can pull that carrier sheet off. It will get the full press when I do the puff vinyl on top of it. And as you can see, that back side with that plastic was just fine. Now removing the carrier sheet from that vinyl. Now why I like the flocked vinyl, let's talk about that for a second. If you're not familiar with it, this stuff is amazing. It's like this velvety texture and it almost looks like embroidery. And that is why I like it underneath the puff vinyl. A lot of times the puff can take on the texture of the shirt or the material that you're putting it on. And that I don't always like, but this, it sticks to the flock vinyl and it gives it just a nice smooth texture when you heat the puff vinyl properly. Now, if you noticed a second ago, I turned my heat press down to 275 and I'm gonna press this for 10 seconds. And you absolutely need firm pressure. Firm pressure. That is super important. And this, I don't know why it didn't work. Like I said, puff vinyl is kind of tricky until you get the hang of it. And I've realized that my heat press heats hotter than it reads. So after doing a whole lot of testing, 275 was still too hot. So I started pressing things at 265 and now it works perfect. So I've got a couple different techniques on what to do for puff vinyl. If you want to see that, just comment down below. Show me how to puff vinyl the right way and I would be happy to do that. Now I pulled out this board so that I could have the super firm pressure that you need with puff vinyl, thinking that this would be the right way to go. And with this one, it didn't actually matter, but I am not disappointed with how this turned out because I just really like that black on black look. I think it turns out pretty slick. So covering up the board with some butcher paper, again, keeping this kind of on the edge here to keep that keychain and zipper kind of off to the side. I did come up with some other tricks on how to get this to work without it hanging off the edge and keeping it in the middle of the press where it's typically the most even heat is in the middle. But for this one, I just did it this way and it worked fine for getting that vinyl to stick down to the flock vinyl. And after heating that for 10 seconds, I pulled the carrier sheet off of here and you guys, this looks super slick. Like, I think I might either just wrap this up and have my kids give it to me for Mother's Day, or I might just go put this on my bag right now because I really like the way this turned out. I will still test a bunch of these with puff vinyl, but I can tell you the flock vinyl and patterned vinyl on this looks really super cool as well. I've done a couple of those and these are just a great thing that you can personalize and just really make fun for anyone. If it's for a birthday or a graduation or whatever, I am having a lot of fun making these and I hope you go out to Hobby Lobby and grab some and just have fun. These are a super quick and easy project. I just really like how this turned out. Now this one is a great project to do as well. Here we have a couple sublimation mugs. I grabbed this glitter one from Michael's and the white one I got off of Pro World, which is where I love to get most all of my sublimation blanks, which you can also use with infusible inks like I talked about before. It's all the same process. You still need sublimation blanks for infusible ink. Here I have my printed sublimation prints. Those were some 3D flower seamless mug wrap patterns that I grabbed off of Creative Fabrica. And all the other things I use, as we will talk about those as we go. So make sure you watch this through the end of the project so that you don't miss any of these key steps. Using a lint roller, we are going to clean these off, and then grabbing those prints, we are going to just cut these down to size so that they can wrap around these mugs. Now I love doing mugs, and a lot of people tell me, well, I don't have a mug press, so I can't do mugs. Well, I didn't have a mug press either until recently when I purchased my 5-in-1 Better Sub heat press, which I highly recommend. It is such a great heat press. I use my Ninja air fryer. I never used it for cooking because it just didn't make enough food for my family, and it works great for sublimation. So we will get to that in a few minutes. But here I am taking these prints that I cut down and taking some heat safe tape and taping these down as tight as possible. With sublimation, with these mugs or tumblers, you need it to be as tight as it possibly can be because you don't want any loose parts or gaps. You want a tight seal, and we will get to how we make that happen even more so with this when we're not using a mug press. I will have some full tutorials on some of these projects linked down below in the description because I do know I am kind of speeding through some of these just for the sake of this being kind of a longer video. I didn't want to go like super step by step on some of these, but as you can see, I'm taping these up and then grabbing some butcher paper. And we are going to wrap this around the mug and just tape it down. This is to protect it from that green silicone wrap you see off to the side, because I've had these wraps kind of bleed through and leave weird green shadows before, which was weird. But these are some silicone mug wraps you can get in packs of all different sizes and shapes. And you just push this together like a belt buckle. It'll click into place when it is tight enough, and sometimes it feels like you're pushing it together so tight that you're going to break the mug, but trust me, you will not. Just keep going until you hear it click. And we are going to wrap up both of these the same way. And these mug wraps have been a lifesaver because for so long I didn't have a mug press, which I haven't even used yet, honestly. I like that I can do this in my Ninja air fryer, and using these wraps, it works really well. Now here is the star of the show. It's the air fryer. I'm going to turn this on to 390, and we are going to let this heat up and then put both mugs in at the same time. Also, I can't do that with my mug press. It's a one mug press. So that I can do 2 of these at a time is great. And we are going to set the timer for 6 minutes. And then at 3 minutes, we are going to flip them over. Now we flip them over so that they don't sit in one spot for 6 minutes. They could get like some burnt marks on the bottom just because they aren't moving at all and they're sitting on that hot surface for so long. So either grab a tongs like I have here, or if you have some heat resistant gloves, go ahead and throw those on and just turn these over and finish the timer for the 3 minutes. And you are good to go to pull these out. Again, use some protection. Now set these aside for a few minutes to cool down. I should make a note here. Do not throw French fries in here tonight for your children. Once you use an air fryer or a convection oven for your crafting purposes, you can no longer use them safely for food. These sublimation prints and infusible inks are toxic and they definitely give off fumes, and you do not want to be using that for food. So there's your warning. Only do that if you are absolutely done cooking food in them. So now push those buckles together until they release and peel away all of the paper. Now you do want to let these sit for a while and cool down because 1, they're really hot, but 2, you want to avoid what's called a ghosting effect, which will leave like weird shadowing and like a blurry edge to it, and nobody wants that. You want beautiful prints every time. So let it cool down, and then we are going to peel off the paper, or rather the tape, which was kind of hard to do with my gloves on. Now this white mug here, it's kind of a bigger mug, which I really like, and this print came out so nice. I was super impressed with the coloring on this, and also how that 3D effect makes those flowers look like they're just popping right off of the mug. Now my 7-year-old walked in after I finished this, and she immediately claimed that mug. So sorry Grandma, you will not be getting that one this year for Mother's Day. My 7-year-old also, to make sure I didn't give it away, stole one of my bamboo lids from a Libby glass, put her name on it, put it on the mug because it fit perfectly, threw a straw in there and claimed it. So it is in fact hers, and she uses it quite often. But the other one, the silver glitter one, I think turned out really well also, and I will be gifting that one. Now the coloring I think came out great on these mugs, and I highly recommend making some of these. Here we have some sublimation puzzles. I mean, how fun is that? You can really customize these things and have a lot of fun with this. Again, you can use infusible inks on this or your sublimation prints. Here I got this box at Hobby Lobby. It was $6 and you get 6 puzzles in this box. Now for this, again, heat safe gloves, Teflon, butcher paper, heat safe tape. We've got our scissors and our lint roller, and we are ready to put this together. Taking the box here on the back, you can see it has the instructions. So we are going to set our heat press for 450 seconds for our heat time. Peeling the plastic off of this, there is a cardboard piece behind the puzzle. You want to keep that behind the puzzle or your puzzle will fall apart. And if you can see, I really like these because they have this shiny, like glittery texture, not texture, it has like a glittery finish on it. It's not glittery textured at all, but it's very shimmery, and I really kind of like that. I would definitely get these from Hobby Lobby again. Grabbing our print, I also got a 3D seamless pattern of flowers off of Creative Fabrica and then took it into Canva. Again, there's a whole tutorial I will link below on how I worked that seamless pattern and got it the way I wanted, and then adding text to it. It's super easy once you figure it out. Now pulling that cardboard piece off just for a little bit to line up this puzzle, I am going to take some heat safe tape and just tape some of this down just to secure the puzzle a little bit better on the bottom here. I really didn't want any of these pieces to kind of wiggle and move around, but then we are going to add that cardboard piece back on top of that and tape that down as well. We just want to be super secure with this puzzle since it is 120 pieces. We don't want any of this stuff shifting around while we're moving it. Then we are going to be ready to take this to the heat press. Now if you don't have a heat press, don't worry, you can always use your Easy Press. And the Easy Press 2 gets up to 400 degrees, so you would be fine with this. Otherwise you have to play around with the temperature or time. But here we are ready to go. Now, because it's a puzzle and it's cardboard and it can kind of conform to whatever's underneath it, I'm gonna use this board again and put down some butcher paper to protect the board from any of the ink bleed that might get pressed down onto it. But I wanted a nice solid surface to keep this as flat as possible. You want to put your paper side up so the puzzle is down underneath it, because you always want to heat on the paper itself when you're heating up the sublimation or infusible inks. Grabbing a piece of Teflon, or you could use butcher paper, again, whatever you have will work. And we are going to press this with medium to heavy pressure for 50 seconds. This puzzle was so much fun to create and super simple. I mean, you can't get any easier. I could see doing this even for like graduations or birthdays, making a little, special note on it, and then taking it apart and putting it in an envelope as kind of like the card would be really fun. And I do have some graduations coming up too this spring, so maybe I will work on that. Now, after removing this, you want to put some pressure on it, something heavy like a heavy book or the board that I just had on the heat press, and press this down really well until it cools off a bit. Because it is cardboard, it kind of warps when it gets hot, and you want to flatten this out the best that you can right away. Then you are ready to flip this thing over and remove the tape and that cardboard piece to see what the print looks like underneath. The tape seriously is the trickiest part of this, you guys. Sometimes it takes me forever, especially if I just clipped my nails and they're super short. This can be a challenge. I know, it's always the silliest things. But here I'm going to put that cardboard piece on the back again so that I can flip this over in one shot. And look at that. That took almost all of the ink off of that print, which is what you want with sublimation. And this shiny finish on this puzzle, I mean, seriously, this is amazing. This was such an easy project, and I think my mom is gonna love this. As you can see, it says welcome to Grandma's garden. She has a thing for gardens. She loves her flowers and all those things. So this is a great project. I hope you guys go try it. And if you're looking for more ideas on what to do with your Cricut for quick, easy projects, go ahead and watch the video that's coming up right now.